Well, hello, you beautiful people. You're late, Jay, and you're muted.
Hi.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us on today's episode of Geeking Out. We are geeking out about alien species in movies and sci-fi in general. And with me to talk about this is Mr. Jay Burns. How are you doing today? And what are you up to these days?
You know what, man? I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me. I love talking aliens and nerdy shiz like this. You can find me on twitch.tv/Luztherin, LOOZTHERIN, where I do nothing but talk smack and play video games.
And for the rest of the time, you do nothing still, just talk to
Yeah,
yourself.
for the most part.
A lot of nothing. All right. So that being said, again, we are talking about alien species. So not the species alien, which we'll probably touch about a bit, but really aliens in general in movies. So before we start, we have a little list here we wanted to talk about, or important ones in our hearts to talk. But before we do, Jay, you actually have a couple good ones. We're not going to go in depth, but maybe honorable mention is still required, in my opinion.
Most definitely. So I'll just name like three of them that I got right off the bat. I'm gonna lump a lot of them together. But this one comes. It's like Kryptonians, the Martians, the New Gods, everything that comes from outer space in the DCEU or the DCAU. A lot of them are really cool. The Dredge from Titan AE, we were just talking about it. I think the concept of them is incredibly cool. They're an alien species made of electricity. It's just different than a carbon-based life form, which I think is absolutely fucking awesome. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know if I can swear on this or not.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the Bioraptors from Pitch Black. They're like dragons meets hammerhead sharks and shit with just gnashing teeth that live on a planet that gets 26 years of sunlight and then 26 years of darkness. They're like cicadas, but worse. They're really, really weird.
They were scary. Like I remember, it was the first one is my favorite of the whole Krennic, Riddick storyline because it had no backstory. It was just a fun horror sci-fi movie that we haven't got since the Alien. It had this aliens feel to it, but it didn't feel like a knockoff. So I really love, and especially that species is your worst nightmare. You're safe for half of the day, but then it can pop out and kill you at the right circumstances, which obviously they landed in the perfect circumstances to die. You waited another week, you're alive. No, you had to land on that day. But that's a very good pick, my man. What else you have?
So I've got the ghouls from They Live. They are technically aliens. This one's really weird because obviously this is more of a look at like what consumerism and what capitalism can do to an individual, just turn them into like a zombie-like creature. But I think the effect that when you put the sunglasses on and you look at them, they are a completely different monster. It's just honestly, I didn't watch They Live until like recently. I know about it being a part of pop culture, but actually watching the movie and then watching it again, I like to watch movies that intrigue me a lot over and over again, so I can pick up on more things every time I watch it. But this movie is so weird to me. Not only just for the like fact that Keith David and Roddy Piper beat the shit out of each other for like an 8-minute straight shot in an alleyway, but for everything else that's involved around it. This is the most like there's a really difficult way. It's really difficult to describe without just using the words capitalism over and over again. But like that's all it is. It's just aliens created for consumerism.
That's one honorable mention I would like to talk about. I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, but it's the aliens from Dark City.
I have not seen Dark City.
Oh, they have a very interesting feel. It's from the same director who did The Crow.
Okay, Alex Proyas.
Yeah. And for me, it's very mysterious. It's outdated now. It's so 99. You can feel like everyone's trying to copy the filters, a bit of the Matrix, the way it looked. And I think they even use the same sets because it was in the same studio and the same year. So the buildings look like the freaking Matrix, which is freaking funny. But the aliens itself, not revealing too much, has this eerie sense of control that they have, but you don't understand how they have it.
Okay.
And they have amazing controls, amazing powers, and you start understanding a bit more. But they're creepy as hell. They're elongated. They almost feel like a Nosferatu, but alien.
Okay.
Without too much of the creepiness, but that long, slender,
kind of looking like Count Orlok.
I guess so.
Like the original vampire that everybody sees.
Yeah. I thought you were talking about the funny one. What we no.
No. Count Orlok, Max Schreck from like 1923. Yeah. No, I'll have to check it out because I love me movies like that. Plus, honestly, if you think about it, if it is the same sets used in the Matrix, it's kind of a meta joke from the Matrix itself. So like,
exactly,
I like shit like that.
And you love the A Knight's Tale, right?
Yes.
The main character, the main actor, is the bad guy from that movie. The guy
Rufus Sewell.
Yeah, he's the main actor. He's so weird, so unhinged.
I mean, he's kind of weird in A Knight's Tale too. I don't want us to get off on a tangent about it, but you mentioned it, and I fucking love that movie so much.
Same here. But yeah, so check them out. That alien species is very interesting and very unique. Okay, so continuing down your list, and then we're gonna go start talking about our main ones.
The last one I want to bring up just like real quick before I get into anything else is probably one of those really weirder ones. It's Klaatu and Gort from The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Yes. Original or remake?
The original. Although I do likes me some Keanu Reeves as Klaatu. I didn't hate it because if you think about it, that man is so wooden. He acts like he's an alien in a lot of what he does. So I thought that it lent really well to him.
But you see,
from outer space,
that's what I think kind of lost me in the new one is the fact that he was wooden. The original one, he wasn't wooden. He was just trying to make people wake up, which is a message you still hear today, is to wake up society,
Yeah.
And there's sense of urgency, a sense of like, why are human beings so stupid? And kind of reflects the narrative that the viewers are asking themselves in everyday situations. You lost that. And the bigger robot, I'm sorry, I'm not a fan. Like, the visuals don't work for me. I think about that movie, I think about the big, clunky, but menacing, and not campy either, because it could have been super campy, especially in those decades.
I still think the original one is a little campy, and I think that it's so like you gotta I look at it like this, especially when it comes to like Gort like that, they really weren't gonna be able to create like a practical like 30-foot or 10-foot or 15-foot robot. Yeah. So they had to hire a bigger dude. It's like getting David Prowse to play Darth Vader. Like you want somebody big and intimidating behind the suit, but you don't want that voice. So like they went with Locke Martin as Gort. A bigger dude, and a lot of what he does is like he doesn't kill anybody. He knocks out a couple of people and he disintegrates weapons. So he's not even necessarily like a creature of offense. It's mainly a defensive thing, which I think is really cool. But I don't think you can keep the same story, but change modern day sensibilities and or see the change in morality from the 1950s version to the 2000s version, especially in movies post 9/11. You're going to be a little bit more offensive in your defense, and I think that's been shown a lot in movies. So I think I like the difference between the two of them, and I like Keanu Reeves as Klaatu, but I like Michael Rennie as well.
You can't even compare.
You give me any stage actor though.
We'll save it for the debates, my friend. We'll save it for the debates, and you will lose. All right. So that being said,
that's the guy who chose David Ayer.
It was a mock match, and I tried my best at that.
You did.
All right, so I even start talking good about Will Smith and his parenting skills. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the main ones. First one I want to talk about is, for me, the representation of aliens in an Alien movie in the 90s. And funny enough, we just talked about Will Smith, Independence Day, and they're, I don't know what the hell they're supposed to be, mushroom-headed, very small guys. Like, how do they balance their head is something I've always asked myself.
They look like giant squids to me.
Yeah, but they're not like the squid aspect. We're talking about Arrival soon. That's more of the sea life squid. This, I don't know where they got the design, but it is kind of funny looking, but still super menacing. And you do not mess, like the shiny reflective, and the eyes without the armor is so creepy, but with the armor they look badass. They look like insects, you know.
Well, like, okay, so it's really weird because you have to take into consideration like the thought processes that humans would have when looking at something like that. And not only that, but look at the size of that goddamn spaceship. Like, how did a creature like that create something that big? We couldn't comprehend it. We couldn't fathom it. So like that adds an element of horror to a movie that isn't even horror. And I do like things like that, but also like they're weak enough that after like, albeit a crash landing, you could kill one with a punch. Like Will Smith completely destroys one with a punch. Like,
or send a virus with no Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah, like how? No.
We're not going to go into the plot lines because there's some holes bigger than a lot of. Anyway, we're not going to go into that. But it's the aliens itself though, like and the alien spacecraft. Like I said, the big saucer, but the attack fighter ships, were so cool.
Oh yeah,
it was so well made for the time, and having that like dynamic of us trying to do our best, but we don't have the capacities to fight back, especially with a goddamn shield, you know.
Yeah.
But the design of the ship, the sound, I always love the sound when it swoops by. That very high pitch, very well done engine sound that you don't really
sounds like NASCAR meets like a TIE fighter engine.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
There's this drag to it, you know. So yeah, for me, it's definitely one that I love. Kind of sucks that I'm a defender of the second one. It's horrible. Again, plotline holes that's like potholes in fucking Quebec. Okay, you can break your car. It's that bad. But at least they tried pushing the narrative a bit more. But then they went into alliances, and you know, there's species been trying to fight them forever, and we're the first ones to do it. Again, the center
feels very Battlefield Earth.
Yeah, we do not talk about that. We do not talk about this. No.
Okay, so I think I just figured out the answer to my own to the question that you had, and also part of mine. How did they walk with those heads? They're from space. They probably have gravity manipulation, so it would take the ease off of their heads.
No. Because in the spacesuit, in the spaceship, Will Smith and what's his face would have floated.
Well, no. I'm saying in general, and if they have the technology to traverse if they have the technology to traverse like the universe, I'm pretty sure they have the technology to create like a wearable gravity field for them.
Okay, but no wonder they live in space. Spacecraft. Because they go back home, they freaking have like 900 bill for chiropractors and neck pain for the rest of their life. So yeah, I would also live in a giant spaceship with gravity on it.
Absolutely, no more back pain, please.
Now, that one iconic scene with Data himself doing the surgery, with the spaghetti flying and the lights fucking flashing in the background, which I was young enough to cry and leave the cinema. At that time, I couldn't. The first time I saw this movie, I couldn't handle it. It was too scary for me.
That was the same way. I was the same way with the mummies, the scarabs in the Mummy. Like my legs started falling asleep, bro, and I freaked out in the theater. I was like, I gotta go.
And me also Jurassic Park. For me, the snake one, the venom.
Yep.
That kills
the Dilophosaurus. Dennis Nedry.
Yeah, for me, that scene my parents had to take me out.
I'm never going outside in the rain at night again. Absolutely no. I feel it. There's just something really weird about watching. I don't even want to say it wasn't even a dissection. It was more of a vivisection than it was a dissection, because the thing was essentially still alive while it was happening. So it's like, oh, cool. You know, maybe he hit a nerve in it and it caused, maybe he hit a nerve in it and it caused it to twitch, and that's why shit like that happened. Or maybe it was still alive. We don't know how these things work. That's why he was trying to dissect it. But no, that scene is creepy, bro. That scene is absolutely fucking creepy.
Especially because you see less. There's the strobes. There's the flashback of but the conversation with the president and the aliens sending the signals at the same time, and the way it floated. And in my mind, for me, is still probably an iconic horror scene. Even though it's not a horror movie, like you said, this is not a horror movie.
No, it's got horror elements to it, but I think most alien movies do. Exactly.
Yeah, these creatures are so unknown, and that's what humans are scared of, is the unknown. Usually, I'm that idiot that dies first in the movie because I actually am interested in the unknown. We'll try to have a conversation with it. They can be dead.
Yeah, I'm not going to be like, oh, what's that noise? Let me go investigate.
No.
I'm not that guy, bro. I am not that guy, bro.
I'm not that guy either. But if there's a 10-foot alien with 4 eyes, I would try to. I wouldn't have the normal reaction. I know myself. I wouldn't be like, chow fucker. I'm like, does he speak or does he do telepathy? Is my brain going to be able to handle telepathy? Well, we'll find out.
So you talked about like all of the strobes and like kind of a little bit of the jarring nature that like happens during the scene with the camera work. I think a lot of that can be, especially when it comes to aliens, I think you have to go back to the OG. I think you have to go back to like Cameron with that, because that right there is a horror movie with an alien in it. This is the inverse. This is a movie with an alien abominable horror in it, but less is always more. Like you don't see the xenomorph in Alien a whole bunch. A lot of it is obfuscated by either them only seeing a shadow of it, them seeing it through fog, or hearing it in vents. And I think that worked for that horror angle better. And I think adding the strobe lights, adding that shaky cam almost to that scene played off really well, because it didn't come across as jokey. Like going back and watching it as an adult is one thing. That right there, knowing what it is, knowing what's coming, but watching it that first time, less is more. And it worked out really well.
Yeah. All right. So on to one of your picks, my man. What do you have?
Thomas Jerome Newton from The Man Who Fell to Earth. It's David Bowie. It's David Bowie's character.
Bowie.
He even said his last name was Bowie.
But
but yes, it is Ziggy Stardust. Technically it's Ziggy Stardust at that point in time, but yes. I mean, this is the dude who's essentially just a Martian, comes to Earth looking for water and becomes a mogul at business, and completely forgets the fact that he like is there for a certain resource. Even though he has all the money in the world, it still doesn't work out very well for him in the end.
I've never understood that movie. I've tried.
I think I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I think this one really is just the trappings of capitalism, especially knowing like the way Ziggy Stardust felt about it, the way Ziggy felt about a lot of that shit. Like, yes, he was an incredibly influential and an incredibly like wealthy individual, but he always tried to give back. So I think he dove into a character where it was the exact opposite, to show what would happen if you are just materialistic and this is what you're going after. You obtain a level of prestige, of fame, and wealth where what you wanted originally and the reason why you started down a path is not where you end up when you get everything you want. But I love it. It's weird. This is a movie that like I don't know. Like I know a lot of people know about it, but I don't know a lot of people who have actually seen it. You know what I mean?
I understood the concept in a sense. Like I've seen the movie, but for me, it was I think it's the directing that got to me. Like it wasn't easy for me put the points together, you know.
Yeah.
But I was younger when I tried, so I would have to rewatch it in an adult brain. Probably would get it.
It's also a movie from the 70s. I don't know a lot of movies from the 70s that people like outside of like maybe Star Wars, where like and
Rocky,
that's just
Rocky.
Okay, yes, but also a very simplistic story. I think more than not. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but what I'm saying is those are movies designed for everybody. You're not going to sit your 9-year-old child down to watch The Man Who Fell to Earth.
Could we do The Woman Who Fell to Earth with Lady Gaga?
I honestly, I wouldn't hate it. She's got a weird enough personality. I think it would work really well. But they're doing a series right now on it. They're doing a TV series right now, and it's got Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Who would you replace David Bowie? Because
now.
Yeah, the thing, if you're doing a TV series, it has to be someone super very different.
Well, so they replaced him they replaced David Bowie with they replaced him with Chiwetel Ejiofor. So Chiwetel is playing the alien in this series. I personally, just looking at it, I'm not saying that this person can act. I'm not saying that they are great in anything that they do. They do make some killer music. Post Malone.
It would be taking a chance, like probably did on Ziggy Stardust, right?
Yeah,
it would be taking a chance, but I don't know. It's if we're going in musicians going to actors, which again should have been respected. That's why I don't care about the TV series. You just lost the spirit of it. You go through the same path they went. Anyways, I digress. But that's why I want Lady Gaga, because she has the acting chops. She can act. I always remember like American Horror Hotel.
Yeah,
I was not the most perfect performance, but I was held back by like, oh, she plays well creepy.
She does creepy very well, but she also does sincere incredibly well too.
Exactly.
Say what you will about like the Star is Born, like its 19th remake or whatever, but like it's not a bad movie, and it shows it gives her a depth of character that I don't think a lot of movies give actors or actresses, especially those more known for their music more than their acting.
And that's what I mean. Like having that, you need a slight unease to be the alien, right? So she has that unease, but she also has really good emotion capacity and not just do like a shtick, which is I'm the odd one, right? So for me, that is so much better as a casting choice. Then again, they're probably going for an angle is completely different, but the one thing that made me still enjoy kind of the movie was Ziggy Stardust's performance. His aura is so weird. You're not gonna get weirdness, I think, out of Elba's performance. What the fuck do I know? They probably maybe organize something so awesome that we'll never even think about the original, but I doubt it.
I've seen a couple of scenes of it. So far, I'm not a fan, but I don't think that like hour-and-a-half long movies need to be turned into a 10-episode drama series at all. Like let a movie be a movie. If you're going to remake something, I get it. You want to explore a little bit more, but you can do that in a 2-hour movie. Not as much as you can do it in like a 10-part miniseries, but there's no reason to make a 10-part miniseries out of a 2-hour movie and a short story.
Anyways, we're digressing very badly right now. Let's go on ahead and talk about another alien species. Let me just get a bit of inspiration here. Yes, let's go ahead and talk about the aliens in Signs.
Okay. The dumbest aliens in all of history.
Yes, but A for effort.
Fair. But if you find out that water, not even holy water, but water in general is your weakness, you come to a planet that is covered in 3/4 of water.
But this, I heard that argument so much saying, "Hey, they're allergic to water. What do you want in a planet of water?" But maybe they never encountered water before, and it's just shit bad luck.
Out of the billions to the billionth power of possible planets that they could go to, they just decided to come to the one planet covered in water.
You know, someone from the high command that chose this planet has his head floating in space somewhere. You know?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, there's a guy that
he got chucked out of an airlock.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
And then his balls followed.
I will say this though. I am not a giant fan of Shyamalan. I like a lot of what he did in his early days. I'm a fan of Unbreakable. I really liked Unbreakable. I didn't need like 3 more movies in that series. I love the first 2 acts. Like the first act and a half of The Village is by far a perfect horror movie to me. But like afterwards, like once you go back and you can notice the airplane flying across the sky, you're like, okay, maybe this is like seeing that truck in Braveheart. Maybe it's just a mistake that people missed. And then once the big reveal happens, you're like, oh no, it's just okay.
But going back to science,
yes,
yes, they are dumb, but maybe they never encountered water.
This really scared the shit out of me, though.
Yeah, so it's like for me, is again less is more, like you said, right? The little scenes, the hand going under the door, right, trying to grab the character's hand, and also just everyone's reacting at the same time, because it's not like they encountered the alien first before anyone on Earth, and now they're trying to survive. They're looking at news reports like with everyone fast pass by, and they're shocked as probably billions of people in the world, you know?
Yeah.
And then takes time to actually have not even a full shot because CGI fucking sucked in those days, and he did the best he could.
I mean, the alien running across the screen, like essentially doing the Bigfoot walk in that one scene where they're at the, I want to say it wasn't the favela. I want to say it was actually during the birthday party in Mexico City.
Yeah.
Where they saw it like for the first time and they freeze framed it as it was running by. Creepy. I'm not gonna lie. Like it creeped me out as a kid, but I also watched this movie at like 2:00 in the morning in a room that was pitch black. So like perfect storm of things to make a movie that is creepy already, way creepier. I think there are religious overtones to this movie that kind of like were a little heavy-handed at that point, and then as an adult going back and rewatching it, like I get you, I respect your faith, that's cool.
Which again, it's a sign of the times. There's a lot of movies that, you know, you just, it's a good reflection of the times itself, and it was still more religious back in the day. But I have no problem with having undertones of Christianity. I'm not Christian for 2 cents, but like there is an audience for it, as long as it's not just that. If you bring something else, I have a platform, right? But like, and that for me never really bothered me.
No, he raises really good questions in there too, because like it's even brought up between the two of them when they're having that conversation, when it is M. Night Shyamalan as the police officer and Mel Gibson, I almost said the anti-Semite, but Mel Gibson having that conversation afterwards, and they're like, well, what if this is all a part of God's plan?
And again, I have to correct you, Jay. It's not Shyamalan, it's Shami Mamelon. No. Shimmy Mamelon. There you go.
Shamalama Ding Dong. Got you.
All right. So but yeah, for me, the scene, like in the more beginning part when they're trying to figure out what the hell is happening, of the alien on the rooftop.
Yeah.
That is again good use of the limitations of CGI. And thank God, I'm sorry. It was still in a time that people were thinking more CGI is better. Matrix 2 and 3.
Looking at you.
yeah, it is not the solution, and CGI was either a really big miss or, if you're really lucky, genius. It was not a proven science.
It
So
was
the
more of the
fact that
former, not the latter.
exactly, so the fact that he was conscious of it and he decided to really go almost in a Hitchcock standpoint of, you know, showing a shadow, as showing tiny bits, but also respecting the fact that if you show too much, it's not gonna stay that or how do you say that? Stand the test of time.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I think a lot of movies on I think a lot of movies on subsequent rewatch, especially if you're being analytical like over them, don't over the long run, because the more and more you watch it, the more and more you formulate your own thoughts behind it. And then sometimes you're like, oh, this thing that I really liked, you can spot flaws in it. And I don't think that takes away from a movie per se for me. I actually enjoy that because it's like, hey, you know, I'm working on a script. I know that this looks really great right now. Let me read it another 15 times. Does it still hold up? And it creates a perfectionist cycle. But like he does a really good job in this movie. Shyamalan does a really good Shyamalan does a really good job of this movie. Um, Plus, you get like Joaquin Phoenix before Joaquin Phoenix got like weird Joaquin Phoenix.
I was always
Um, he was always a little weird, but I mean that's the result of growing up in a cult, and I don't blame him for that. Um, but this was the whole swing away thing. I still know people who quote this movie, even though people don't like this movie. I know people on a daily basis, or I should say like a weekly basis, who say the words "swing away," and it's what happens when you worked next to a batting cage for like 8 months. But like, yeah, no, this movie's great because you have the kid who's easily impressionable. You have the adult son who is a little myopic, if not just like a little apathetic to everything around him, and then you have like the father who has gone through so much and still has to hold on to everything with faith and knows that if he believes hard enough, essentially, that everything will be all right. But he still has to believe in both of his kids. That's why his daughter, like, he's like, my daughter left all those glasses of water out on purpose for this reason. She didn't know that those guys were going to be hurt by water. It was just something that she did eclectically. He also was like, I didn't know that these guys were going to break in, but my son always has a baseball bat right next to him, so I'm going to tell him to swing away. There's a lot that goes into the human element of that movie, and it's not just about the aliens, but the aliens make that movie.
Yeah,
and I'm glad it wasn't like a village-esque twist where it was just like, ah, haha, it was Old Man Jenkins the entire time, turning it into a Scooby-Doo element. But like, that's a as much as I will talk shit about M. Night, this is one of those movies that I won't talk shit about his like oeuvre. You know what I mean?
All right, so on to another one of your picks, my man. What do you have?
I'm gonna go back to one that I briefly mentioned. I'm gonna bring up the arachnids from Starship Troopers. We're talking just in from planet Klaatu. By the way, I don't think a lot of people I don't think a lot of people watched it because they were just like, oh, schlocky Casper Van Dien and fucking Lars Van Trier. Fucking who directed Jan de Bont? Fucking some dude with a goddamn weird name fucking directed this movie. But I watched a video the other day about this, and Dizzy was in an area of space where they shouldn't have been, off course, and they bumped into an asteroid, which sent the asteroid off course. And that asteroid, the theory is that's the asteroid that crashed into Buenos Aires, and that's the reason why humans decided to attack. Klendathu is the name of the planet, not Klaatu. Attack Klendathu. So it's essentially just like a false flag operation in a movie. But this is the thing about the movie is it's a satire on military propaganda films.
Yeah.
And it's one of the better ones that we've gotten because this was during the time where like a lot of what the CIA did in America, at least, or what the FBI did, or what the military did was pay movie studios to create essentially military propaganda movies to up signings for branches of military. I'm looking at you, Top Gun, and I'm looking at you, Top Gun Maverick. because that's exactly what those movies were. Those were military propaganda movies. This movie is a satire of all of those, and it's essentially turning the the world military into what's a proud member of the National Socialist Party at the end. Because if you look at the outfit that Neil Patrick Harris wears at the end of this movie, right before he talks to right before the brain bug scene, he is in a Schutzstaffel outfit. Yeah, no, they are Schnazis throughout this entire movie. It's hilarious when you look at it from that context. But the aliens in this movie, for a movie that came out like 97, the aliens in this movie freaked me the fuck out.
It was the shift in tone that really got me hooked, because the first part of the movie, I'm not gonna lie, there's certain performances that kind of remind me of season 1 Power Rangers. Okay, it's bad. It's really bad. It's really wooden, and it's cheesy as hell. And I'm like, what are we watching, mommy? But then that shift of like, oh, this is what is this? You know, and the killing and the almost how can what's a war movie? Steven Spielberg.
Band of Brothers.
No, the movie.
Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, it has like the beach scene,
yeah,
Saving Private Ryan feel, but back in the 90s, you know, of like just pure mayhem and destruction and suffering at the most cruel way possible, you know. It juxtaposed with the beginning of like this lighthearted, we are the world savers, yay, you know.
Absolutely.
And then the reality hit, and these bugs are vicious. I mean, this is Zerg from StarCraft vicious.
Your base R belong to us, bro.
Yeah. So and something about, like, again, the fact that you think you've seen it all, but expand to like other forms of the alien that had other purposes for war as well. It's like, just because they can't speak our language and look like us does not mean they have their own versions of military. This is not just a swarm of mindless creatures. They have a plan.
Well, so like I think that's honestly, I think that's one of the more intriguing things about creating a species that's based around like bugs and insects and arachnids, because as much as we understand about them, and we know that like hives have queens and worker drones, a lot of in movies tend to have like hive minds and shit, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it's just a misunderstanding, and it's just a way for us to try to like work out how this would be a thing, and essentially like explain it like I'm 5 Reddit posts. Like, how do bugs work? Like, because you have worker ants, you have drones, you have guards, you have the queen, and you have like the mates of the queen who provide seed for more and more of these bugs. Killing one doesn't kill them all necessarily, because you can transfer queens, as we know now. But I think it's really cool to sit there and be like, how would I go about this if I didn't know an explanation to something? And using something that we at least have a modicum of a grasp on, like a moderate grasp or intelligence on, and then creating something alien out of it is incredibly cool to me. That it reminds me of like that movie They, where like they had the giant ants and shit. But this is more terrifying, because I ain't never watched a dude get his hand bitten off by an alien bug in my entire life before this. And I watched this movie when I was way too young. I watched this movie when I was like 9 years old, dog.
Same here.
And I was like, yo, I should not have watched this movie.
And I think it made the movie cooler, to be honest.
It definitely did. It definitely did. Like, I have a nostalgia for the movie. Like,
yeah, I might even put it on after, man, to go to bed. Jesus. Hey, why not go to bed and hear some screaming and arms being torn apart?
Hey,
good for nightmares.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, kind of is, yeah.
But no, like the fact that all of these bugs have a designed job and they can be used for war doesn't necessarily mean that those jobs that those insects or aliens do is meant for that thing. I think that goes back to, like, hear me out here because this might be a stretch, right? I'm going to mention a movie that doesn't have aliens in it per se, but you remember the beginning of the new Mortal Kombat movie?
Yeah.
When Scorpion gets attacked by Sub-Zero before they're Scorpion and Sub-Zero.
Yeah.
And he ties the fucking rope around the kunai that his wife is using to dig. I think they're just using tools that they have as weapons. And it's one of those things that, hey, this was just a biological advantage that we have that we use for something else, but we can turn this offensive. And so this is what we're going to do. And they were like, oh, these bugs don't have any intelligence. Well, they don't have intelligence in the same way that we have intelligence, but we know that, like, dolphins have intelligence. We know that squids have intelligence. Like,
and it shows that this really shows us the pure arrogance of the human ego, you know, of they're not intelligent because they're not like us. Yeah, they might actually be more intelligent because they actually have an understanding that is self-controlled by ego.
And honestly, they've gotten to different planets before we did, so
and we, us as a human species, keep complaining that human species is dumb. So,
I mean, the human species is kind of trash. Have you seen us lately?
Yeah, it's have you seen this ever? Witch hunts to now, we still digress.
Oh yeah, but no, it's weird. They have a lot of straight to DVD sequels.
The animes are good.
I was about to bring up Roughnecks, Starship Troopers Legacy, because I was like, good. I used to wake up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and watch that and Monster Rancher and Digimon before school. This shit was fire.
That, and I also love the going off beat again, but the cartoon that they may spin off of the Godzilla 2000s.
Yes.
I really love that.
Better than Godzilla 2000, which came out in 1998.
All right. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead. I have plans for a species, but I probably can talk about it for half an hour and just melt people's brains, which I don't want to do today. I already had, not miss talking about metaphysics released last week with a metaphysicist that's been doing the domain for 40 years. But yeah, I don't want to blow people's minds like before, so I'm going to go ahead and keep it simpler, keep it awesome. It is Predator.
Okay. I was actually looking forward to talking about like the way that music and math work in communication throughout the universe.
But we don't have an hour and a half.
Exactly. So hint on what we were going to talk about.
Yes.
If you want us to come back and talk about it, get in the comments, let us know. I will come back and have that conversation. Predators, the Yautja are fucking phenomenal, dude. Like, honestly, as what I thought would have been a throwaway. I'm sorry, I'm stepping on you. I'm so sorry.
How dare you? But no, I'm not gonna go eloquently, but I still wanted to talk about an iconic alien that lived in reputation for so long, not because it had good movies. I mean, it had two, and the second one is interesting to say the least. Yeah. But it still lived on. It still had this reputation because of the notion of AVP, because of the video game, and then we finally had it as a movie. Not the best, mind you, but still fun to see. But the character itself, that hunter that needs not just to hunt because he needs to survive, but hunt because it's a rite of passage.
Yeah,
is so eloquent and beautiful, and they're savage, but there's also such a eloquentness to it. It's so elegant, you know, their way of doing things, even though it's freaking savage. They're not pure barbarian brutals. They will think, they will outsmart you, you know, and the consequences is you get your whole skin peeled off alive. Yeah. Hey, so it's you better think before you act against them. And their cloaking is awesome. Their shooting capacities and also explosive capacities are
the little tri-beam cannon that they get on their shoulder too.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
All right. So none of my rambling. Jay, what's your opinion?
So I really do. I think I like Predator 2 more than most people, but I like Predator 2 for the simple fact that it ties into a comic book which explains the pistol that's given at the end of the movie more than anything else, and it explains that alien right there, that Yautja, has had that pistol since the 1700s. He crashed on Earth, was wounded, was helped by a slave at that time, and nursed back to life, and then helped that slave become essentially a pirate ruler on the seas. And he watched him die and then was given that pistol by the person. So like there's a story there, and I like that story. I think a lot of the context of hunting down an animal or hunting down a creature that isn't as smart as you essentially goes back to like a lot of the rites of passage that humans have throughout the world. Because my granddad didn't see me as a man until I shot my first buck, like until I killed and skinned my first deer. I essentially wasn't viewed as an adult in a portion of my family. So like to a certain degree, I understand it. I like them as a species. I think that it's an incredibly cool species when you think about it overall. And the fact that they essentially created a monster alien species that was smarter than the xenomorphs just to combat the xenomorphs. You know, in the lore, it was the Yautja who essentially like captured some xenomorphs, brought them in AVP to Antarctica, put them in the pyramid so they could have the ultimate hunt. Yada 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 yada. Say what you will about movie lore, but like lore, it was, we need something that can stand up to these, and let's create a badass but an also just ruthless fucking species. I really like Predator as an alien species.
And your species is a badass if you intentionally try to go after a xenomorph. Like, not like you accidentally, face it, and then you have to. No, you are like, hey, where's the nearest xenomorph? Space Google, thank you. Go to the left,
Absolutely.
And go towards that creature that is made of nightmares, and for them it's a hunt. So they are the definition of badass.
Absolutely.
And that scene, it takes off the master first time in the ugly mud, like that reveal is really nightmarish because you expect the ugly face, but the extensions and the spines that come out of it, and the teeth and the seriousness, it's awesome.
There is a scene in AVP that I like, and I know a lot of people don't like AVP. I don't like Requiem. I actually don't hate AVP, but there is a scene in AVP. Absolutely, I think it's better than Requiem, but I think Requiem was a mistake to make anyways. But it's the scene when they kill the xenomorph, or at least dismember the xenomorph, and the hunter at that point in time picks up the finger, the dismembered finger, and burns himself on his armor, and then burns Sanaa Lathan's character with the exact same thing, because she was a part of the ritualistic hunt, which means that she has earned the respect of this thing that is essentially, spoilers for a movie that comes out 3 years after AVP, 4 years after AVP, hunts humans. So like for a higher species, essentially in their eyes, to deem you a worthy hunting companion is actually really cool. There's a lot of like deeper lore that you have to go into, that you should go into, and that you should look into when it comes to the Yautja, that I think not enough people do. But it's one of my favorite scenes, even without the context of knowing that that's a thing. It's such a fucking fun species. Like it's just. I'm not a big fan of the first Predator movie, but I'm also not a fan of like movies that take place in a jungle where you're being hunted. That, to me, maybe it's because of movies like Predator, it just seems cliche. And maybe this is where like a lot of that comes from. This also just seems like a kind of like an opposite version of The Most Dangerous Game.
It's like that guy going to his cousin, hey Phil, do you have a bunch of those plants again that we can just bunch up and look like a jungle? Hey, you still have the props, the gun? Yay, perfect. Let's make we're lost in a we're lost in a jungle. You know,
Absolutely. Can we get Carl Weathers?
Yeah, exactly. He's my neighbor. Of course I can.
Absolutely. We need somebody that you can barely understand. Oh, cool. I got Jesse the Body Ventura on the phone. No. Somebody with a funnier accent. Arnold's a badass. Yes, let's get them both.
And we need an angry person. Perfect. There's an alcoholic Indian guy next to the beer store. Take him, you know?
Exactly. But like, say what you will about the first one. I like the second one. I like AVP. I kind of wish that you could play as a predator in like in Alien Isolation instead of playing as like a space marine or a scientist. But maybe we'll get one of those one day. But I think predators are badass, dude. I like honestly,
right.
from their ranged weapons to their melee weapons to their capabilities and thought about how to go about hunts. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it.
All right. Well, that being said, my man, we are hitting off on the end mark. But again, thank you very much, Mr. Burns. Go come ahead and talk about alien species. I'm sure we're going to see you again, my man. But again, thank you very much for being on the show. And y'all, if you're not subscribed or you haven't liked this video, what you're doing, go ahead and subscribe. We are on our way to 1,000 subscribers. We are already at 300, or close to 300 last I checked. So hopefully we're past that. But if not, click that like and make it 300. That subscribe button, I should say, and make it 300. So until next time, bye-bye.